Hi, welcome to the Reboot Loading Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. On today's show, I have Liz and Bryan.Day. They are parents of 4 little ones. They're basketball fans and they love to travel. And between the two of them, they've had 5 layoffs over the past couple of years, 3 of those happening within a 9-month span. And one of them happened while Liz was pregnant, and Bryan just basically said, screw it, and I'm going to start my own thing. I'm excited to talk to you guys about that.
I think we want some kind of award there.
And we're all understanding they have 4 kids. So if you guys hear kids in the background, this is real life. So and we're just rolling with it.
Love it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Bryan, talent acquisition is your specialty here.
That is correct. Yes, it is.
So tell me a little bit about how you ended up to the point where you decided, I'm just going to go ahead, create my own business. I don't want to deal with all that's out there right now.
Yeah. So I've been in talent acquisition for 10 years. Anybody that's worked in it, it really is. It's a grind. I started off in staffing. I was there for 3 years, and then I did corporate recruiting for 3 years. And I got caught in 3 layoffs in the last 3 years due to COVID, a company that they were bought out by another company, and they let go of the TA team, and then last one was with government roles, and that just didn't, there was a layoff there too. 3 years, you go from, I think I'm good at this to, oh my goodness, what has happened? What has turned in the market? Like, I don't know why I've become obsolete. So after, 3 months worth of searching and going on LinkedIn and seeing, job posts where there's 1,000 candidates, you can't get interviews. And even the interviews you do, it's hard because you just know, like, okay, you're talking to 20 other people. Like I'm hoping at this point. So we were at the point where we both were laid off within 9 months, 3 times. I heard this saying a long time ago that you're always 3 months away from, losing everything. Mm-hmm. And, that's kind of where we were. We never got a chance to really catch up when Liz was laid off. And then I was immediately laid off after that. And then she was 7 months pregnant and then laid off. We lost her home. We had to go live with her parents. And in your mid-30s, after being successful in your career, it's just not something that you would ever, in your wildest dreams, think of. There are times where it's like, yeah, I may be late on some bills, or, it might get a little bit weird with student loans, but you never think like, well, my livelihood's about to be taken away. So when we hit that reality, it was, okay, this is an opportunity. Let me try to create something. I've done this for a long time and I've been successful at it. And, the only thing that's going to be different is I have to find my own clients. Looking at it, it's not the same risk that you would take if, we have our home still. So the mindset behind that was, if we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to adapt, or it's going to keep happening. We lost our home this time. If history's starting to tell us something, it's going to happen again. So I can't just keep going to companies. And in this field that really is volatile, you can look on LinkedIn at any point and just see thousands of recruiters that are looking for work. And if you're in this field long enough, or any field that you work in, and you're starting to see patterns like that, it's time to adjust. You got to do something different. Yeah, that's what led to that. It wasn't some like light bulb that went off like, oh, I could do this myself. It was, more of necessity of, okay, if we want to survive and, we have all these kids now, we've got to do something different.
You touched on about the 3-month thing, where I think back before, maybe pre-COVID, I don't know if it dates back a little bit further than that, but I feel like it would have sufficed at that point. But the way that the market is now, I feel like it's more like 6 months to a year, as far as you need to have a savings built up for that much. And I feel like as far as the 3 months of, where you're going to lose everything, that's been brought up to maybe like a month and a half. It just seems like everything was either accelerated, or you have to have more of a cushion to fall back on, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
With what we've experienced the last 3 or 4 years, yeah, I mean, like you said, I would bet most people are 2 months away, especially if you've got a family. It just seems to be where we're at in in the market right now.
So I think it was, did you say, let me make sure I have it correct. So was Liz laid off first and then you were laid off after when she was pregnant?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to give you the timeline of, God, what would that have been? 2023.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I found out I was pregnant in February.
Yeah. So we
And then I
were
was laid off
just
in
to,
March.
yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of where we were at thought wise. Lily, our 3-year-old bundle of anger, um, he was finally 2, and we went through, we went through the pandemic of working from home with a newborn, and that's a unique experience in itself. And she was 1.5 or 2, and we were like, all right, we're going to go on vacation. We've gone through this storm of beginning of COVID where I would work with people that don't have kids, and they would be like, your kids are screaming in the background. Okay, do you want me to muzzle them? I honestly don't know what you want from me. Yeah, I can acknowledge that they're there, but I not much I can do. So, going from that experience and having lived through that, we were so ready to take a vacation. So we did February of 2023, went on a cruise, and 3 weeks later, she was laid off.
Oh, wow.
I was
We were
10 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, and so we're trying to catch up from that. It took her.
That was really quick. I got a job within like 2 weeks from there. So that was a super quick turnaround. That was great. I didn't really even miss a paycheck, I don't think. So I got in at that second location, and I was there until I was 8 months pregnant.
Mhm.
And then I was laid off from there.
Yeah, and then I was laid off in May of 2023.
So
Yeah.
April, May, late March, early April, May,
Yeah.
and then September.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really interested and curious to see what the long term. I don't want to say damage, because that's not that's not the way to put it. But
Effects.
yeah, of having to go through this, especially living through that. I've had to let people go. Right? It's not a good thing. It's not a fun experience. But whenever I've had to lay people off, I have, since I work in talent acquisition, I have the unique position of saying, hey, send me your resume. I work with a lot of different companies. I can work on helping you out. And when I was laid off, there was none of that. I had one manager that the night before made us get on a 7 p.m. meeting to talk about, just normal work stuff. And then I was laid off the very next day.
Wow.
And what was wild about that is, my manager at the time was, it was a Zoom meeting. She said, hey, HR is going to take it from here. And then they disconnected my Zoom. She blocked me on LinkedIn. I never even got an answer from her of like, what happened? I was never paranoid about anything. Like, I was never at this, working on pins and needles that this has brought. And my very last job that I had, like, the whole time, it was like, okay, when's it coming? When's it coming? I know it's going to come. Like, I'm definitely going to get laid off. And then sure enough, you get laid off.
Yeah. I went through a company prior to this layoff that they had so many rounds of layoffs that I survived
Mhm.
through. It changed the way that I would look at my job because I saw people around me just dropping out like
Yep.
flies. And I'm thinking, when am I next? So I kind of had some trauma there,
Exactly.
just wondering, when am I next? And then fast forward to last September, signs were kind of there, but at the same time, you're wondering, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misreading things. But when it actually happens, I feel like I'm a totally different person than I was 6 months ago because
Yep.
I've had to learn how to live with a lot of uncertainty that is
Yep.
really uncomfortable to do.
Yeah.
I am in that mindset of like, there's some scarcity going on. I'm pinching pennies. I'm trying to find ways to make my dollars stretch longer. And I honestly feel like even if I found something, I would still be in that same
Yeah.
mindset. Like, I don't feel like that is going to go away anytime soon.
And I think, honestly, what I like about it's kind of like politics, where it swings one way and then it swings the other way. This job market's cyclical. And one of my biggest things that I remembered from when I started my career was, don't forget what this feels like. I worked for a really toxic company, and as I was working there, it was, don't forget what it feels like to be, ridiculed in front of the team or whatever. Because at some point, always, I guess, I had some kind of vision, like, this is just a vessel so I can learn this skill set and I can start my own thing.
On the flip side, though, like thinking about being laid off, you were talking about how like you had a company who completely cut you off. But on the flip side, and Stephanie has experienced this as well because we're laid off from the same place. We have a huge community.
Yeah.
From where we work, and people have been so good, and people just like reaching out of nowhere, offering referrals.
Yep.
I'll never forget that, and I will always put myself in that position to do that for other people too.
Yeah.
Just knowing how that feels.
What I like about what we're learning with this, and I don't want to say trauma is necessarily not a bad thing, but when you're going through this, you're not gonna be that. I don't really care that you've got a ping pong table and you have pizzas. Your culture sucks. And there's nothing that you can do that's going to make me want to go into an office. And kind of this absurd, like my job specifically, you can shoot me to the moon. And as long as I've got internet access, I can do my job. And it's, let's get away from this, like, why do I have to dress up for you same 20 people that I see every day? And why do we have to have this fake, like, rah culture? And let's just be real. Let's be honest. And I want to do this job and I want to go home and see my family. That's what's really important.
And but the pizza, Bryan, what about the pizza?
That's fine. We can make pizza at home. we can order. We do that real well. We're real good at it.
I agree with you though. I think switching gears a little bit about like the return to office and something that you now have the freedom to choose not to do with becoming an entrepreneur, doing your own thing, is that you don't have to go into an office. You're not really another number, another employee.
Yeah.
But on the flip side though, some people will say, you have a lot more bosses now. You have a lot more managers out there because you're kind of having to sell what you're doing.
Let me try to think of the best way to answer that, because the ability to not have this weight hanging over you that at any point someone can cut this off. And I can say for me, it's been worth its weight in gold, not have that weight hanging over your shoulders. I do have a lot of people that I have to report to, but also going through this, you learn how to work in a completely different capacity.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that I was a hard worker, and it completely changes when it's like, okay, you think you are cool. You now have to work for your own livelihood. How are you going to manage that? And I think it's just, it's different. I think if you're really good what you do for a career, you can figure out how to manage that, right? It's not so much stressful from a work capacity. It's stressful because, this is kind of your livelihood now. And this is.
Yeah, I agree with you there, because I've always trying to make the case that I understand if I'm going to go into business for myself, I will have a lot more bosses or a lot more people to answer to, but it's mine. And like you don't have to worry about, when it'll close down, when it's going to be shut down, when you're laid off from it, because you hold the power there.
Yeah.
So you basically have your own way about doing things. You have your own priorities that you can set. So with the clients that you work with now, is that something that's important for you to work with clients that kind of share the same values that you do?
Oh, 100%, of course. There's, without getting too into the weeds, there's definitely companies that I wouldn't consider working with in any capacity. So I do like that. I've been, one of the things kind of that you hit on is we can get who we want, and being able to work with like green energy companies, and not working with, chemical companies or companies that make products that are harmful to your body. You know what I mean? So I definitely like having that freedom. When you first start, you're kind of like, please just sign me, anyone. As we've gained candidates, like I definitely go on their LinkedIn and I want to know, like, okay, cool. Like, you say that you're a diverse culture. Let me look at your C-suites. Let me look at people that are in key managerial positions. If I see that it's just a bunch of old white dudes, like, come on, like you know what you're about. Like you don't.
Diversity.
Let's not. Yeah, let's not advertise something that you're not. So there's also that freedom of being able to work with companies that kind of share the same values as you. And I've also run into companies that don't have necessarily the same work style.
So you guys were laid off multiple times with your kids. I know you have varying ages there. And I know with mine, we struggle with trying to figure out like the budgeting, and you have to cut back on some things. And how was it, or how do you think it impacted them in whatever capacity? Like, did you have to have hard conversations with them, or?
Yeah. So every parent knows you have to say no sometimes, but I'm sure every parent feels like this too. I want to give them everything. So that was really tough. Like I think Bryan said, we went from a position to where we could pretty much say yes about most things. We could take trips, and we could go to, Target for a toy or whatever. We could go to McDonald's for a snack just because we wanted to.
Yeah.
So we went from there to significantly cutting down. Like Bryan mentioned, we moved in with my parents, and they were obviously just amazing. And we're so thankful. But that's tough. We went from everyone had their own rooms to me and Bryan and the two girls are sharing a room, and the boys have their own rooms, which was, I mean, thank goodness they had that. But just like no space. You can't have Robux just because you want to today. Like they were, of course, they're amazing children. They weren't like fussy about it or throwing fits or anything like that. For the most part, they understood, but I'm sure that led to like uncertainty for them too, which I hate because I never want them to feel like that because I want to give them everything again.
Yeah.
But as much as I could, I've always tried to like shield that from them. At the end of the day, we have a place to live. We have a place to sleep. We have food to eat. You're going to school. We have a car to drive. Like we have the necessities. We're all together. We'll get through it. Things will be good again.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, because you don't know what the impact is going to be on the kids.
Right.
And you know that they feel it. When you have tension in the house, when there's a layoff, you're going to have tension. They're going to feel it, whether you're trying to, we can try to mask it all we want, but it'll come out in some way. And kids they're very smart. They pick up on things.
I don't want to over or under. Oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think you're trying to say like it is traumatic. You don't want to oversell it, like saying something is something that it's not, but it is traumatic. It has changed the way that we react about things. Yeah. We might not get Robux every single day, even if, I have a job now. So, but we might not go back to that. We might let's continue with the cut because you just never know what can happen. I mean, maybe we'll get really a great place where we have tons of savings and everything's amazing, but you don't know what can happen. That's kind of what this whole thing has taught me is like, you just don't know.
Going back to pre being laid off versus post being laid off, especially with the number of times you guys have, it changes you. You start having different priorities. You start looking at things a lot differently. You are different. And I know that you're recently into a new position, and I know that has to be a huge weight off your shoulders. But have you found yourself still wondering, is this true? Am I dreaming this? Is this my reality now?
Yeah, 100%. So a little bit of background with the job I had with my second layoff, I already had been laid off one time. I had already gone down that road. My boss's boss at the time on a Friday afternoon put a first thing Monday morning call on my calendar. I saw it come through and I immediately was like, shit, this is it. I'm getting laid off. And I showed my husband, he was like, yeah, you definitely are. So remember, I'm like 8 months pregnant at that time. So I'm going the whole weekend freaking out, just knowing, we're living with my parents because we'd already had 2 layoffs, 3, I don't know, some number of layoffs, and we were not doing well financially. So we're living with my parents. I'm 8 months pregnant with 3 children. And I have this call that I just know is I'm gonna get laid off. Sure enough, I did. But it's those little things like at my new position, they're hiring several people for the role that I'm in, and I'm already thinking, well, like, are they doing that just so they can let us go later on, the ones that they don't like, or if I don't do good on XYZ project, does that mean I'm gonna get laid off? So no, I mean, I think that's gonna be with me forever.
I think that's an inevitable thing now, because it reminds me of, I don't know if you had grandparents like this, but like my grandmother, she lived through some tough times, and she was, I don't want to say a hoarder, but she would want to make sure she had enough bread, she had enough groceries. And so when she would get things, I mean, coffee creamer was one for her that she just had to have bottles of it in the refrigerator at all times. But it was that scarcity that she was, that if she didn't have it, or if she didn't have enough of it in there, it wouldn't be there. And I feel like I'm going through a lot of that myself, being laid off and wondering what's next. And I feel like I had said earlier, I don't know that getting another job is going to give me too much of a peace of mind.
I think in order for me to get to a place where I'm like super comfortable, I would have to just inherit millions and just have it. I don't think any job that I'm going to get is going to make me feel security.
Well, I was going to say like lottery, but you know, there's always horror stories around that too. So
right.
I like the inheritance part. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find some wealthy relatives we didn't know about.
What I can say though, on the flip side of that, is appreciation of having stuff. Just the small, this is going to sound just ridiculous, but just being able to walk on the side of my bed, because we were in such a small room for so long, and being able to do just that small thing was just this incredible, like, wow, what a luxury. Yeah. So it's never good to go through those kind of situations, but like, I think this has fundamentally changed who we are as people. And you know, I don't want to say beforehand we were never vain people, you know, but going from both of us having 6-figure salaries and being able to do, for the most part, what we wanted within reason. You know, we're not flashy or anything. I don't know the best way to put that, but to go from that and then to living in a space, you know, that's going to fundamentally change who you are. And I think for us, I'm not happy that it happened, but I'm glad we went through that experience, because
I'm glad we have gone through that experience.
Because coming out the other side and with starting a business and with seeing success from it, it's like, all right, we've weathered literally another storm. And on a personal standpoint, on a, you know, our relationship, just in general, you know, going through COVID and then having a child through COVID, and then both of us working from home through COVID, and then moving to a city that we don't know people, and then going through this and then living with her parents. We never fought at all about any of the situation. There was never any finger pointing or anything. It was just, okay, this really sucks. Let's have, you know, our day to freak out, but this is our new reality right now. And what do we have to do? What's the next step forward? And being able to navigate that with someone that, I think the best thing about us, we know that we're just normal humans that have emotions.
Yeah.
You know, if, you know, that was a lot to go through, and, you know, we went through it, and it was like, cool, we did it. We're an awesome couple. I'm glad we did this.
That's great though. I feel like though, in some ways, if you're looking on or trying to look for the bright side of things, going through a layoff in any capacity, it is a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were able to, it sounds like you were both able to kind of just come to the conclusion that, okay, this is what it is. We're accepting it. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people have a hard time with, is accepting the reality of where you are.
Yeah.
And you've accepted it, and then you've learned on the flip side to appreciate those small things that maybe before it didn't seem like such a big deal.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
The room on the side of the bed that you can walk there.
Yeah.
And puts a lot of things in perspective for sure.
Yeah.
With your business and what you're doing now, are there particular types of clients you're working with? Or are you open to working with, you know, larger companies?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular profile that you're looking for?
No, I don't like the idea of siloing what you're going after, or having a region that you go after.
So you're just open to any and all opportunities?
Yeah, like so we've got a couple of clients, like we've got one that's a civil engineering firm. I have a client that is a construction firm. I have another one that is in the IT space. We have a real estate company that we work with.
Very diverse.
Yeah, exactly. If you're thinking of starting a business, don't silo yourself. Don't stick to a certain region. Go for everything. Go for literally everything that you can.
That's good advice. I'm used to seeing recruiters, very few that I get that are more open to working in other industries. So I'll usually get one that's more just, oh yeah, I'm tech logistics, and that's kind of all we do.
Yeah.
Hi, Liz. One question that I've been dying to ask you is, when you were out there looking for a job, pregnant, did you feel like you encountered a lot of bias? Was that there for you, that, you're 8 months pregnant looking for a job and the company might not be so open to
Yes.
accepting you?
Obviously, it's illegal to discriminate, but there were, I want to say, 3 or 4 different times where I would get to final rounds. Everything had gone well. I felt really good about it, and then I got rejected or even ghosted. And just, I mean, it's weird. Like, I know it happens, especially like in the early rounds of applying for a job. I get that. Like, no problem. You're not going to apply, or you're not going to reply to thousands of people that apply just to say you're not moving on. Like, whatever. But after you've done 3 or 4 or even 5 rounds, and you get to that final round, you expect to hear something. Say you're going with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I got to the final rounds with several different companies, and at first I was like, well, I have to be honest. I'm having a baby in like a week. I have to say something, because like a lot of times they would be we would get to the final rounds and they would be like, hey, we just want to confirm that you would be able to do on XYZ date, and I would be like, well, actually that's my due date. I felt at first I was like, I have to be honest. I'm not this person who could be a little bit deceitful. So I would tell them, and then that would just be like the end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just like totally bombed interviews. I don't know, but it was very discouraging because at the time, emotions are high and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm about to have another kid. How am I supposed to provide for these children? And I can't even get a job. So, but I typically now I don't bring up family at all. And in the past it had been something like, I would mention, my kids, blah, 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 blah. But now I don't even want to talk about my kids because you just never know what someone else's bias is going to be.
Being a woman, being a mother, and being in this job market, and there's a lot of bias that is built into a lot of these interview processes. It's unfortunate that we have to do that still in this day and age, but that's really the reality of it, is that we're so afraid to be open about it and say certain things.
But like, that sucks because we deserve to take our kids to their dentist appointments,
right.
Like bare minimum, right? Like, no work I'm doing is more important than what my kids are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like logistics, moving boxes, or whatever you're doing. Like, unless you're literally out there saving lives, it's just not that important. And I don't want to pretend that it is.
Yeah, that made me think of this. I think it was on Instagram. I saw someone saying, like, you hear, and I never heard this until I got into logistics, but people referring to like saying we need boots on the ground, and it's like, it's not that serious.
Right. We're not going to war.
We're not going to war. Liz, Bryan, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, talking with me. I know you guys have a very busy schedule with kids and now jobs, your own business. So it really means a lot to me that you took this time to chat with me. And I just want to give a shout out to Bryan's business. It's Talent Wise Consulting. I will link everything in the show notes to ways that you can get in contact with Bryan. Take a look at his website. Liz made the logo, so shout out to Liz for making that. All the kudos to you.
Thank you so much for letting us do this. This was really cool, really fun, so we appreciate it.
If you're interested in becoming a guest on my show, all the information on how to contact me is available in the show notes. Would love to speak with other laid-off individuals, mental health professionals, recruiters, business and career coaches, and resume writers. Also, if you're enjoying the content and would like a shout out in an upcoming episode, a link in how you can support this podcast is available in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.